Hello everyone and welcome back to this new session which is going to be on dictionaries. So basically within the Jupyter Notebook environment that we've already opened, I'm going to click on 3.02 and click Dict here, and you should be able to open up this notebook, which essentially provides you with a bit of an overview as to what dictionaries are, and then we do a few examples with this data structure for you to basically understand how to create dictionaries, manipulate them, and use them in normal contexts. So I guess the key point is that whereas within lists, as we had worked previously, you have square brackets, or within tuples, for example, in the previous session you might have round brackets, dictionaries are going to use curly brackets, okay? And that means you need to know how to access each of these on your keyboard so that you can create either a list, a tuple, or in this case, a dictionary. Whereas lists, for example, might have some sort of inherent order. So if you put them in, if you put them into position 0, position 1, position 2, position 3, it's going to retain that order. But dictionaries do not have any order. And actually, the way that you access them is actually using key value data structures, okay? So you're going to use the key in order to access a particular value within your dictionary. So not numbers, essentially. You're not going to use a numeric indexing system like we did with some of the previous examples, either lists or tuples. So I've got a quote here. So a Python list is a collection of Python objects indexed by an ordered sequence of integers starting from 0. In contrast, a dictionary is also a collection of Python objects, just like a list, but one that is indexed by strings or numbers, not necessarily integers and not in any particular order or even tuples, okay? So hopefully that is kind of a good way for you to kind of delineate the differences in your own mind. Essentially, dicts have this kind of very specific structure that I'm talking about, and therefore we're going to create some now, and hopefully that's going to give you a bit of clarity around exactly what these data structures are. So in this first example here, what we've done is we've basically created a new variable. That new variable is going to be called my_dict. Okay, and you know it's a new variable because on the left-hand side we've stated that variable name and then we've got equals. And here what we're doing is we're allocating a dictionary structure. Okay, so let's just say that we have a curly bracket here opening and a curly bracket closing here. And the most simple dictionary structure you could have would just be a single key and a single value, okay? Now this is a key here because it's on the left-hand side of this colon. And on the right-hand side of the colon is going to be the value. And you're always going to have this key value data structure, okay? So know that that's indented a little bit there, but let me just make it so that it's clear to you. So you're going to have key. These are going to be, you can actually use strings or numeric information for your key name. But essentially, you're going to have a value of whatever data type you want. And it's going to have a key here on the left-hand side, as you see here, the colon, and then the value, okay? But this is a really nice, efficient data structure because you're able to just grab things based on the key and it will give you the associated value, okay? So really, really kind of nifty. So, as I mentioned, dicts can hold any type of data structure. So in the first one there, I just had a single key and a single value, but you could have, a key here where you have an associated value of just 6, which is obviously numeric. You know that because this is a string here, it's in quotes, it's red, and on the right-hand side here, this is numeric because it's green. And on the left-hand side here, we have another character string as the key, my second key. And on the right-hand side of the colon here, what we have is actually a tuple of numerical information, so 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay? And that's really nice because, as I'll show you later, we're able to have dictionaries which might have key value pairs, and the value might be another list or another dictionary or some other data structure. So in the future sessions, we'll actually do multi-dimensional data structures. So you can have a list of lists or a list of dicts or a list of tuples. And really, there is no limit as to what you want to do there. So, I mean, it would be not efficient to work with, but you could have a list of lists of lists of lists of list of a list, okay, or a dictionary of a dictionary of a dictionary of a dictionary of a dictionary, all nested within a data structure like that. It's just maybe not that advisable to use really complicated data structures like that. But they can kind of be useful sometimes if you have just one or two layers of nested dictionaries or lists within these other structures. Anyway, I don't want to get too complicated. We're going to get to that in a later video, but we can actually just create some example dictionaries here that we're able to manipulate. So in this case, what I've done is I've created a new dictionary. Sorry, I should have said dictionary before, but here we're going to create a new dictionary called satellites, and we're going to, we know that it's an empty dictionary because we're going to say that it's curly brackets. We're not putting anything in the curly brackets, we're just allocating it to satellites. So when you do that and we print satellites, it's going to say satellites is a dictionary, but satellites doesn't actually have any key value pairs within it. Then what we're able to do is we're able to actually allocate something into our empty dictionary. So at the moment, satellite doesn't contain anything, but now what we're able to do is we're able to say satellites, which is our dictionary. We're going to use square brackets here to allocate the key. So you remember we kind of did similar things when we indexed into lists, for example, we use square brackets, but in this case it's a dictionary, and we're going to be using square brackets, and we're going to allocate the key. Okay, so the mission is the key here, and we're going to say that the value associated with that key is Landsat. Okay, so this is one of the NASA remote sensing land use satellites, which has been around for many decades now. So the first mission was back in the 70s. But there are now many follow-ups. I think we're on Landsat 8, 9, 10 almost, so there have been many generations of these types of satellites. But we're able to just allocate that into our dictionary. We're also able to do the same for the launch year, so in this case 1972, the orbital inclination, which is 99.2, I believe, degrees. And when we do that, it's going to print a dictionary with 3 key value pairs, the mission, which is Landsat, the launch year, which is 1972, and the orbital inclination, which is 99.2. Okay, so here we go. Here's our dictionary with exactly those items of information. Okay, great. So I mentioned before that this is a really nice way for us to actually grab pieces of information. So with the list, you could say like, I want whatever in index position 10, but the problem is that if you add something to that list or you accidentally change that order, it means that you might not get the item information you want. So for example, in GGS 300, often in R, I will always tell people not to access columns using the column index because you might change the structure of the data frame. What you want to do is access the column via the name of that column, and kind of that's similar to what we're doing here. Okay, so we're not going to say, give me whatever is in a certain index position. What I'm going to say is we want to get the value associated with the key mission. Okay, and when we do that, what it does is it goes into our dictionary and it says, get me, I want to index in, and it says, get me the key called mission and return that value, and that value is Landsat. Okay. So this is the beauty of using key value pairs. It's very easy to go in and grab pieces of information. We can also access keys and values in different ways. Okay, so we can use the name of the dictionary followed by the keys function or the values function. So here we have satellites dot keys, and then we've got round brackets. So it's going to print all of the dictionary keys. So here we have the dict keys, and it provides a list of those keys. So mission, launch year, orbital inclination. And we can do the same also with the dot values round brackets function. So here we basically get a list of those values. So it's basically saying the values are Landsat, 1972 and 99.2. So that's one way that we can use these functions. We can actually use a for loop in order to access these keys or values. Okay, so I think I've briefly mentioned for loops before. I'm going to cover them in greater detail later, but they're kind of a very important programming technique. Okay, allows us to iterate over a single item of information within a larger data structure at any one time. Okay, so we're able to get an individual key or an individual value from a dictionary that might contain hundreds or thousands or millions of keys and values. Okay, so in this case, the for loop, and it's called a for loop because what you say is for my key in my dictionary satellites, and here we want to specifically refer to the keys. Okay, so you remember when we were up here, we use this .keys function, and it gives us this data structure here. And all we're doing when we say this is for a single key in this data structure here. And then when we get to the next line, all we're saying is print this key. Okay. So what's key about this is that, so what's important about this is that it's kind of using protected Python words. Okay, it's all in green. So we say for this item that we want in then the larger data structure, and now you can, this key here, which is the main point, this key variable will take the value of whichever value it is that we're iterating through at any one point in time. Okay, so if that's complicated to you, don't worry, we're going to go over it in lots of detail, but just want to show you here that you're able to actually print each one of these keys one at a time. Also, the other thing to note is that here, after a for loop in Python, you have to have an indent, and that indent is either using a tab on the tab key on your keyboard, or it's using 4 spaces. Okay, so I could go 1, 2, 3, 4, and that would work. Or I could use the tab, and that would work. If I only had 3, or yeah, if we had 3, in theory that shouldn't work. Jupyter actually is just being a bit friendly, helping you by correcting this mistake. But you see here it's printed, it's actually showing in red. That means it's not got the correct syntax for the underlying programming language. If I put another space so that we have 4 spaces, then it goes green, and it's basically saying that this is a correct piece of Python code. Okay, so we can do the same for the values. So for value in satellite values, print value, and it prints each one of those values. And then the nice thing is that we can also use the items function. Okay, so this would refer to the name of the dict, and then you need a full stop, and then you need items, and then round brackets. And then when you've got that, you're able to say for key value in satellites.items, and it separates it out so that you have just the key and just the value. Okay, so when you do that, what it's saying is each time I leap through each item within this satellite's dict, I'm going to print the key, and I'm going to print the value here. And this is so useful. Okay, so this might seem quite abstract because this is the first time that we've used them, but at some points you might need to go and access information which you have saved in a dict. For example, information from an image, maybe it's metadata for an image, or maybe it's the location of an image, and other affiliated data. And this is a really useful data structure to kind of handle some of that information. Okay. Great, so let's work on the exercise now. Hopefully that's provided you with kind of a general overview of dictionaries. Essentially, what I'd like you to do is to pause the video, have a go at each one of these questions, and then I want you to restart the video again and then look at how I've done it here. Okay, so please pause the video now. Once you've paused, you can then have a go at this, you can then restart it and look at how I'm actually carrying out this exercise, without you having a go at the exercise and then basically either getting it right, which is great, or getting it wrong, which is fine. I'm going to show you how to do it. Without you doing that, you're kind of missing the learning experience, okay? I need you to be challenged. I need you to have a go at these problems when you don't know what the answer is. But that's a really solid way to help you lodge the correct answer into your brain when we then go through the correct answer afterwards, okay? So, in this first question, what we'd like to do is we want to create a dictionary called myDict, and we've got to add a key called myFirstKey and a value called myFirstValue, okay? So the first thing we need to do here is we actually need to identify the name of that dictionary. So in this case, I've called it myDict, and we know based on how we allocate variables within Python, we're going to put that myDict statement on the left-hand side of brackets. Okay, so we're going to on the left-hand side of the equals. So we're going to say my dict equals, and then we're going to create a dictionary, okay? So we're going to need to get the curly parentheses. You can see when I just press the left-hand curly parentheses button here, it also creates a closing one, and that's because Jupyter's basically helping you. It's being helpful. It knows that if you're going to create a correct dictionary structure, you're going to need a closing bracket as well. And then I've just pressed enter here so that it basically gives us space to write in our key and our value. And you'll remember, okay, that in this case we want a key name. So we're going to say my first key. And obviously that key has to be on the left-hand side of a colon. Okay, so I'm going to put the colon in now, and then the value is going to be on the right-hand side of that colon. Okay, so my first value. Okay, so this should be our first dictionary that we've created here. Hopefully you've been able to create my dict, and it contains just a single item with a key called my first key and a value called my first value. Okay, add a new key now called my key 2 and allocate it to allocate it the value my value 2. So my dict is going to be our dict, and you remember that the way that we create a new key is that when we've got the dictionary name, we use square brackets. Okay, so we're going to go square brackets. We're going to put in the name, so it's my key 2, and then we're going to say it's equal to, and we're going to basically allocate the value, so it's my value 2. Okay, so now you should have a dictionary structure, and what you have are two items. Okay, you have the first item that we created, the first key value pair that we created when we made that dictionary, the first one, my dict. And then what we did was we created a new key value, and that new key value is called my key 2, and the value is called my value 2. Okay, so hopefully you've been able to create something similar to this data structure just here. So now I'd like us to actually index into this dictionary and get the my value 2 that we just created. I'd like us to get that and allocate it to a variable called my new variable. Okay, so I'm going to take that name my new variable. I'm then going to say that we want to allocate something to it, so I'm going to need the equals, and then we need to get that value, my new value. And the way that you do that is you index into the dictionary, and you index using the my key 2 key, and that's going to say we want to go into the dictionary, we want to get the value associated with that key. Remember, because these are always in key value pairs. So we're going to go my dict. We're going to index in, and we're going to see my key 2. Okay, and basically what we've done is we've gone into the dictionary and we've indexed into it using this key name. We've allocated that my value 2 to our new variable named my new variable. Okay, and that's printed down here. So that's one way for us to actually go and index. It's really useful. Okay, so we'll use that a lot within our course, particularly if you go on and you do other programming in the future. Have a go at trying to print all of the keys of this dictionary. So we have this dictionary, my dict. You could do this in multiple different ways. You could just go my dict.keys, and that would print those keys there. You would also be able to do a for loop. So for my key in my dict.keys, and then you could go print my key. Okay, and that's going to print each one of those keys that we just created within our dictionary. You can essentially do the same thing for the values. Okay, so you could just go my dict.values, and then essentially once you've got those values there, so that's just kind of a simple way for us to get a list essentially of all of those values. You could also, if you wanted to, actually use a for loop. So for my value in my dict.values, you could go print my value. Okay, and here what we've been able to do is to print each one of those values in our list using a for loop to the console, and it's just been printed out down here. So these are really useful kind of pieces of code to have in our arsenal in order to access information that we might at a later stage extract from a satellite image. Finally, I just want you to have a go at trying to print both the keys and the values from a dictionary using a loop. Okay, so for that what we're going to do is we're going to unpack them simultaneously. So we're going to go for the for loop, then we're going to say key value, because that's what we want to call our left-hand item the key, and then the colon, and then the right-hand value, the right-hand item value, and you go in, and we're going to go my dict dot, and remember that we use items here as the function, and then we're going to print, just as an example, the key and the value one at a time. And when we do that, we're able to print these key and value pairs simultaneously, thanks to this dot items function. Okay, and that should hopefully provide you with a good overview of dictionaries. Now, I'm sure that that is a lot of information for you to digest. It's a lot of information because it's a complicated data structure, and Ed's throwing information at you as to how you do multiple things at once. So it's like, this is how we create a dict. This is how we put information into a dict. This is how we access information within a dict. This is how we use loops to access information, both in terms of keys and values in a dict. So it's a lot of complicated Python to learn at once. But basically, if you go on from here and you're using this, not just in my course in the next few months, but also 5 years down the line, I guarantee you, if you're writing Python, you'll be using these on a daily basis. And I provided you with a summary of the key ways to use this data structure, okay? So you can learn this to do the satellite image analysis project, which you're doing within my module, but then also you will use this for the rest of your life. This is incredibly important knowledge. So I very much encourage you to put the effort into learning these particular data structures and applying them within this course. Okay, great. Well, thanks for tuning in. I hope this was useful. I'll look forward to seeing you in a future session. Thank you.